What's going on in this field? There's so many legal tech solutions.
We have lots of tools also on the marketing front with the use of AI. Common one that is currently being used, I suppose, is ChatGPT. But for busy lawyers, I think it could actually help to get a few things done a lot quicker on that front.
What sort of most effective tool for business development or marketing that you can see that the lawyers can be promoted?
The best piece of marketing and business development that you can do for your firm is to take a step back and start with the fundamentals.
Welcome back to Monday Legal. My guest for today is Barbara Koenen-Geerdink, and she runs a consulting business with a company called Nexel. I know her since she used to work as a director of marketing and business development in Altamini & Co. Welcome, and thank you very much for coming and joining Monday Legal.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You worked in Europe, and then you worked in Qatar, and then you worked in the UAE with big law, with local firms, and you worked in coming from the Receptionist, and then starting business development, and then leading a transformation in INS was quite a significant turn. And in the last 15 years, I think business development for law firms in general have changed a lot. I remember my dad is a lawyer, and I remember very well the technology that we used to use at that time when I was the same age of my son now. And I've seen that we were using technology and business development were basically very much my dad. He was the head of business development, and he was the head of sales.
Doing
and
everything.
He was the one man show. He was only him. There were no departments and there was no marketing. How do you see the change in the profession itself in the last 15 years have developed?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I can actually very much relate to that, because I do feel a part of, obviously my sort of like quick growth within different roles across the sector is a testament to, the sector also being so much more open to business development and marketing. And the business actually, wanting to have that resources and recognizing that this is an essential part of the business. And I think we talk a lot about the business of law rather than, a law firm, because a law firm essentially is no longer only for lawyers. I think, quite some time back, that used to be the case, and it made sense a lot. But now we recognize, competition is rising. There's so many factors that come into play to make you a successful business. And in the current day and age, we need to keep up with that. And a law firm is actually a proper business, right? And I think a lot of law firm partners, they are eager to grow, and they're eager now to run a law firm as a business rather than practicing the law alone. And I think there is a bit of a balance, but I'm very pleased actually to see that we're making that move. I don't think we're really quite there just yet. If you compare, law firms to, for example, product-based corporations or other mega sort of like service-based corporations, very much more sales-driven entities. I mean, I think law firms are still a little bit behind on that front, but they've made huge ways in order to get to where we are now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think also on the lawyers' personal branding themselves have changed a lot. And usually it was a very strict profession where we dress in a certain way, we talk in a certain way, we appear in certain events, and we don't really go on social media, and we don't advertise our services in a specific manner. And even there were some jurisdictions where there are a lot of restrictions on advertising for lawyers.
Exactly.
And but I've seen a significant change worldwide about this. And is this driven by the consumer behavior, or is this driven by the necessity of changing how the marketing and business development for law firms is happening nowadays?
I think it's a bit of both, because yes, consumer behavior, even if law firms, corporate firms, they work with corporates, so it's very much business to business. We still work with people, right? It's a people's business. And with the general evolution of marketing over the years, I think the expectation of people as to how they're being approached has also changed. So as a legal consumer or a consumer of legal services, this has also changed the perception of a law firm, for example, and how you want your law firm to, disseminate certain information, for example. We now call this marketing, right? So a client of a firm, they might want to be approached in certain ways, like being sent lots of information about particular updates on the law, etc. Whereas maybe, a couple of years ago, this wasn't necessarily the case in that way.
What sort of way that you have seen it most effective? Because you worked with big law, you worked with international firms, and you worked in local firms as well. Of course, Al Tamimi is a local firm on a big scale, but there are some smaller or tier 2 or even tier 3 law firms. What sort of most effective tool for business development or marketing that you can see that the lawyers can be promoted, can be sold to the public in all these tiers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from my personal experience, regardless if you're small or big, you need to have the foundation in place. And I've now, especially in the last couple of months, been approached by quite a number of law firm owners, smaller, but also sort of like mid-sized, to get some advice on pieces of marketing or business development work. And I always take a step back because a lot of the times I hear from partners in particular, they would say, oh, we need to be, like this other law firm, we also need to be hosting a conference. And like this other law firm, we now also need to be seen in all these magazines. And we need to attend these conferences, and we need to fly out for the IBA, and we need to be present everywhere. But I think the best piece of marketing and business development that you can do for your firm is to take a step back and start with the fundamentals. Ask yourself questions like, why? Why am I here? And what am I doing? How am I doing it? So these basics, and often they are in your head, you know what you're doing, but write them down and see the bigger picture as to how you fit into the market. And only then you will be able to market yourself, to market your firm, to market your services, because at the end of the day, you have to identify a particular audience that you're going to address. And if we can't do that, then you can shout out loud through a megaphone or, just generally get a crowd of people together. But the message will not be received because they're not the right people that you're going to approach. And I can tell you that so often throughout my entire career, whether that was with the big law, with mid-sized, with, regional firms, it's the same principle that I see all the time. Oh, Barbara, this is a wonderful opportunity. It's only going to cost us $1,000. They've asked me to speak. We should go for it. So my first initial reaction is always, okay, wonderful. I'm sure you're flattered and you deserve this, etc. Because the ego is also a part of the process. But then we have to take a step back and think, okay, so the people that you will be speaking to in that particular conference, are they going to help you to achieve your ultimate goal? Oh, Barbara, what do you mean? I'm like, surely you should have goals. You have goals for your business. You've got goals for your practice. You need to understand, where do I need to be in the next year or maybe in the next 3 or 5 years? And then question yourself, is this opportunity going to help me achieve that? And if the answer is no, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. We know your time is precious. We know your time is costly. So don't go for it. If it does help you to achieve, a better bottom line and achieve your goals, then surely this is something to look into. But only if you know that the people that you're going to speaking to could potentially be people that might buy your legal services. If they are not the people, then, it's an absolute waste of time and money.
So finding a potential customer, potential client, or branding in the right way or giving the right exposure, that must be the ultimate goal in the end. So without a reason or without a successful target, whatever you're doing is not very successful.
Correct.
So,
yeah, and this is why usually marketers in other organizations, they would talk about, we need to identify the persona, right? We need to know who we're going to target. This is when you start to think about, how can we reach this audience? That's your marketing piece. How do we get in front of them? And in our world, in the legal world, it's often knowledge sharing, right? It's writing articles, it's understanding like what keeps their minds occupied, our clients, what keeps them up at night, what is it that makes them tick? And that's what we need to get to before we go into the marketing.
On the other hand, I mean, that's very, very interesting. And I think it's one of the most important aspects is that we know that the time and the efforts and resources we're spending is in the right direction and targeted to the right audience. The other thing that I got from your talk is that there's a lot of homework internally that has to be done by the firm and changes that has to happen internally so that they're ready for the market. So what sort of effective tools or effective ways that the law firms have to change internally in order to be able to be in a better position?
I think a lot of this starts with mindset. So it's a change management piece around the perception of business development and marketing by partners, potentially partners that have been around for a very long time. We see this quite often, where there is maybe some, some friction, or maybe they take more traditional approaches. Some of them have been practicing for so many years that they obviously have built a wonderful reputation and expect, clients to come to them for who they are and what they're known for. I think there's an element of that, but we have to obviously also appreciate that the market is changing, as we said earlier, and our clients are becoming more sophisticated and more demanding as well, and they will be comparing, one firm over another. And whilst you might be, as good as you are, because we've worked with you or because you've got a great reputation, you're not the only one. That's just a reality. And sometimes there is other drivers for our clients to buy your services. It could be, economical. It could be because the firm has certain policies in place, or it could be that, your firm is just not part of the wider procurement process of that particular organization. So many elements that come into play. So it's actually super important to keep that in mind.
I would like to take your advice on one very important topic that often we lawyers, when we sit together, we discuss, what are you doing now? We either say we're networking, or I'm doing a video content, applying for this award, I'm writing a lot of articles, and I have my blog. What sort of most trendy or most likely sort of direction that lawyers can get business off? Because the ultimate goal for us is to actually get more clients.
Yeah.
I see a lot of firms investing so much into awards and nominating all their lawyers, and they go to these gala dinners and nice events, flashy, and we got this award. But nowadays there's so many awards all around by all these big companies, and even the small ones are doing awards, and every now and then I get one email that's like, congratulations, you've been awarded boutique firm of the UAE of the 2024.
Yeah.
Things like that are endless. Even when I talk about video content, which is very, very popular right now, everybody's creating video content, but 90% of the video content is about topics that actually are not a money maker. We just would like to get more likes and more shares and more exposure out there, but the topic itself that they're talking about, I know very well that it's not what's paying the bills for the lawyers. So what sort of effective ways lawyers or law firms should focus on when we're talking about lead generation or actually branding themselves in the right way?
Yeah, there is no one size fits all. That's what I would say, because it really depends on, again, going back to the foundation of the firm. With that comes the goals and objectives that the firm sets. And I feel you need to make sure that you can achieve your goals, right? And some firms, they will have, very achievable goals that don't require as much marketing effort, for example, because they know their audience very well, they're already in front of them. And this applies mostly to very sort of like niche firms who have a very strong network of bespoke people that will buy their services. But if you go to, full services firms, for example, this is where the marketing part becomes really quite interesting. Also, I would say with firms that, deal with private clients, for example, because you can tap into the business to consumer type of marketing, which is, again, requires a different strategy. Now, I would always say that whilst there is no solution for everyone, it needs to be tailored depending on the goals and objectives of the firm, the size of the firm. Obviously, also budget plays a huge role. When you said, I get so many invites for the awards. Yeah, of course you do, and you should actually get invited to many awards because you're doing great work. But then you don't want your full marketing budget to be consumed by, flashy awards and recognition in that way. I would always try to keep a balance. Like, do you really need this? Back to the point of, do you feel that this opportunity is going to support your bottom line? But taking this back, I do think things like lead generation, call to action, account-based marketing are things that law firms are massively overlooking, and the power of these are huge. And I can see this back to, I actually ventured out into another business, which is very much consumer to consumer based. So I had to take a step into this world to understand how marketing works for that side. And whilst I'm doing that, there's so many lessons I learn and how clever things are set up. It's almost like psychological magic and that is happening behind the scenes that trick us almost to get into this buying process and through the sales funnel. And I'm really looking for ways how we can translate that into the use of, the legal industry, because I do feel we're lagging behind a lot on that front, and there's so much opportunity. And even when I pronounce the words like, do you have a call to action? Barbara, what's that?
Exactly.
And I have to explain, like, okay, so every time now we're just being a shopping window. Your website looks smashing. Your award is fantastic. But what is it going to do with you? Like, how is winning an award going to impact you to get more business?
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now with Nexel? Because you mentioned that you have started this recently, and I would love to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. So I set up my consultancy. So I had a couple of people actually approach me after I left the firm. And yeah, now I'm just giving my advice out to, some smaller firms who need it, but also Nexel. And Nexel, I worked with them now for a couple of months. And I used to have Nexel is a CRM system. It's a lot more sophisticated. I don't like the word CRM because it's actually, for me, it's essentially a cockpit for law firms to do everything and to control everything with regards to the commercial side of the business. So this goes back to, marketing, account-based marketing, relationship management, running your key client programs, for example, revenue management, making sure that you've got a proper pipeline filled up with opportunities, opportunity tracking. But we also work with firms who have, lead generation campaigns, like PPC campaigns online with forms. We bring them back to the website so that the BD and marketing team can effectively vet those leads, really making sure for the business that there is an actual opportunity, and then move these opportunities to the sales pipeline. So it's a bit of a beast that can do so much, but it's massively effective. And we've seen most firms who started to use Nexel, they have actually managed to improve their bottom line just because the data tells the story. The data tells you effectively everything you need to know to make more informed decisions. Why are we investing our time and money in this client? Why do we do that? What's the reason for it? And if the data gives you the positive answer, as in, yeah, no, it makes sense, this is the backing of it, so we should continue to do that, wonderful. But it could also be the other way around. And then you actually come to know, I'm wasting my time on particular accounts. I need to move away from those, and I actually need to invest my focus on other ones. So that's what Nexel does, and I'm a huge fan. I had implemented it with the firm I worked for, and now I have the pleasure of advising a couple of firms across EMEA and the US on their media marketing processes within Nexel.
Going back to the golden word that everybody is talking about right now, AI, legal tech. Tell us what's going on in this field. There's so many legal tech solutions. There's so many legal AI solutions. Everybody's talking about it. Even the most well-established and traditional technology companies that are doing legal solutions are talking about implementation of AI. How do you see this changing the market or enhancing our work?
Very interesting. So I can approach this on two different fronts. So as part of my consultancy work, I also work with Jameson Legal Tech. And they obviously have their foot in the Dubai legal market from a recruitment point of view, but also from a technology point of view. So they work with lots of different tech vendors, and I do pick up bits when I speak with their vendors, but mostly when I actually speak with in-house counsel. So I have a lot of discussions with in-house counsel around the use of technology for the in-house legal function and how they see this, but also what is their expectation with regards to the use of AI by law firms and how they want to see this reflected in simple things like work output, the quality of work, but also the invoices. It's a really interesting discussion, and there is a lot of evolvement, obviously, on a daily basis, I would almost say. But when I bring this back to business development and marketing, then I would say there is, a plethora of tools now available to not only help the BD and marketing teams to do things a lot more efficiently, but also for the use of lawyers to basically get, overviews and oversight of market data analysis, back to our first point around targeting, for example, and understanding your audience. You don't have to shift through lots of web pages and company data to, paint that picture. You can now just use tools that are available to you to do that at, quite low cost as well. So for firms to actually not use it, I really don't understand why you wouldn't do it, because it's there. And then when I speak about tools like Nexel, for example, they have AI integrated. And I think most of these CRM tools nowadays, they will have some form of AI that will be used. But in the example of Nexel on the mobile app, you could simply just open it up, look up a company, and click on the AI tool, and then it will basically give you a full overview of all the engagements, all the interactions that have been had with that particular company. So, Ahmed, you've been seeing so-and-so at this company a couple of weeks ago, talked about XYZ based on the notes that you've put into the system, the meetings that have been had. But also Paul from your team has also been visiting them. So before you get into the client, you will now see exactly the latest news of the client, but also who's been visiting this client, what was talked about, any outstanding opportunities that you have with them, etc. So that's also a form of AI where we try to enrich data that we already have with data that is, for example, publicly available to make our lives easier. And then we have lots of tools also on the marketing front with the use of AI. The most common one that is currently being used, I suppose, is ChatGPT. I use it on a daily basis, and I'm not shy to say I don't think it's something that is embarrassing. I think it's something we need to embrace. But I do feel that it depends on how you actually use it. So it's as good as you get out as what you put in. So if it still requires a lot of thinking, like I can't just ask it to draft a marketing plan, for example, I need to prompt really carefully to be very precise on all the elements I just mentioned. So a lot of thinking has been going on beforehand. But for busy lawyers, I think it could actually help to get a few things done a lot quicker on that front. So if you wanted to get a few ideas for marketing, for example, you can actually, based on the goals that you've set for yourself, what you want to achieve, but also knowing your market and your target audience, if you feed that into the system, it will probably give you quite a decent sort of like step plan as to the things that you could possibly do. You would also want to, vet it and make sure that it doesn't speak any nonsense and it's not going to work. But I've tried it a couple of times and it actually gave me quite interesting outputs that I feel can be used. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, AI and the use and as you rightly said, the easiest and most popular tool is ChatGPT, and it saved a lot of time for a lot of professionals. Just needs to know how to use it, or spend a little bit of time and a little bit of training on knowing how to prompt and how to ask the questions in the right way, or even think with you, like give you some ideas or brainstorm in a way, and really is a very effective tool for everybody. Reviewing spelling mistakes, grammar.
Exactly. But also I would point out the data that we can now get from the tools that we use, like your billing system, for example. And even if there were firms who would keep their billing, their client databases, etc., on simple tools like Office 365, on Word, Excel, and you name it, there are AI tools out there that can actually make sense of the data by combining it in certain ways. And I think that is really powerful because it gives you effectively the baseline for more strategic thinking, and also to be able to make more informed decisions going forward. So if you can identify certain patterns based on the data that you would be working with or that you have at hand, then you would know, oh, actually, I'm going in the right direction, or no, I need to, change my course because I see this is not working. And this goes into so many different things. If I look at law firms, for example, billing patterns, but also, revenue, and also checking, utilization of lawyers versus revenue, write-offs, write-downs. Why is this happening? Can we identify a trend? Clients paying late. But also it basically can give you the bigger picture as to the health status of a particular client and whether you are warranted to actually invest in this particular client or whether you should probably take a step back and focus on others. So the data point combined with AI, I see there as a huge opportunity potentially for the future as well.
Do you think the lawyers are ready? Honestly, I feel like we are overwhelmed. We have to catch up with all the changes that is happening in the legislation and in the regulations in the whatever we are working. And we have to catch up very quickly with the changes of the economics of every place we work in. And we have to catch up as well with the technology, and we have to catch up again with the business development and marketing. Bigger firms are maybe more resourceful and more able to do that with lots of departments and lots of employees and staff and so on. But big law and the big firms are not driving the market. The real market is the solo practitioners and the boutique firms, because that's the mass, that's the big number of lawyers in every market. And with all honesty, we are overwhelmed. I'm coming from a boutique size, and I'm telling you, it is not so easy. What would sort of solution can we come up with? What sort of advice can you give to the smaller firms?
Yeah, I feel you, because I think I can relate in the sense that as I said, I've set up another business as well, which is a consumer-to-consumer business focused on road safety awareness training for children. And we have a track where people can rent a bicycle and etc. So it's Barbara's business effectively, and Barbara is doing everything. So I also know that, I have very limited time. I need to be very efficient. I've got staff on site to actually do the activities with the children. But for me, it's the back end work, right? I need to do my accountancy. I need to do my billing, make sure that my revenue is okay. My systems are up and running all the time. The booking system. I have to do the marketing. Whilst I'm a marketer, by profession, as I said, consumer to consumer marketing is a whole different ballgame. And, reading into how to create like really interesting reels for Instagram and stuff like that, I wasn't really interested in that because I never had to do it. And now I have to do it, and I have to take a step back and learn. And whilst I'm in the process, I do feel it has benefited me to actually do get in touch with professionals who can help you out. And whilst it might look like quite a significant investment, it is saving in so many different ways. So it's saving obviously my time so I can focus on growth, but it's also making sure that we do things professionally in the way that they should be done. Because if I do it, I'll probably do it half as good as a professional who's trained in doing something will do it. So if there was a way of making budgets available, and I know, we've got fine lines and we need to make sure we keep the margins up, etc. But I have sensed this is it made a major difference for me to actually work with professionals who know their stuff, and I can see the company grow because of that. If I try to do everything, then I will be running into a brick wall. My growth is going to stagnate. I'm going to get depressed because, I feel frustrated that I can't do it all. But I know that I need to do certain things to get to a point. And again, this comes back to knowing and understanding your goals and objectives, right? If you've got certain goals of growth and development, then it's inevitable that you will need to get support to be able to achieve that. If you are very content and happy with where you are and the work is just coming in and this is what it's going to be, then I think that's absolutely fine. So this is why it's very important to determine your goals and objectives from the beginning. Hiring professionals to do that job, I think, is crucial. They are around and they have been there for a long time. They usually come with a lot of experience and they can bring so much to the table. And I also do appreciate that, particularly for lawyers, you go to law school and what do you learn? The letter of the law, but you don't learn how to do business. And it's something that, people who've gone to business schools, for example, can bring to you as an experience that can help you out, that can at least have those discussions with you to challenge you. And as a team, make things better as you get on. And if you don't have these financial resources to do so, then there is a plethora of tools available. Back to your technology and AI deck, I think that can help to make certain waves. But what I found is I need then a lot of time to look into these tools, to get myself trained into these tools. And the question is that level of investment of my time worthwhile for a sustainable future, or is my investment of money and time better invested in someone who can support me along the way?
Thank you very much. Valuable information, and I'm pretty sure I will personally apply some of your advices for my firm. And I hope you enjoyed being with us.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please listen to these advices. Take note of the advices Barbara gave us today, and see you next week.